I suspect that that cycle has ended and that we're going to go into 6 to 9 months of falling equity and commodity markets. I think that when the revised employment data comes out, people are going to be shocked that actually employment fell last year. When you look at retail sales in nominal numbers last year, up to the first 11 months, they rose by 2.4%. But what did CPI do? Rose by 3%. Short-term cycles until we get into 2028, when then we enter rolling recessions, if not depression, and it's wartime.
The current cycle has ended, with equity and commodity markets likely to decline over the next 6 to 9 months. Revised employment data may reveal unexpected job losses last year, while retail sales growth lagged behind inflation. Short-term cycles will continue until 2028, when the economy could face rolling recessions or a depression. Simon Hunt, a veteran economist and metals market expert, explains that the global economy is expected to weaken in the first half of next year, followed by a 2-year boom in equities, business activity, and commodities driven by fiscal and monetary stimulus. However, this will likely trigger rising inflation, resembling the late 1970s and early 1980s. By 2027 and 2028, U.S. CPI could reach 13%, global inflation 15%, and 10-year Treasury yields over 10%, putting immense strain on a highly leveraged debt system and leading to rolling recessions or depression. Meanwhile, geopolitical tensions in Europe and the Middle East could escalate, though a potential Trump administration may aim to de-escalate conflicts. By late January, Russia may have significant control over Ukraine, having targeted key infrastructure and command centers, including NATO-linked sites. Over 2/3 of Ukraine's power grid has been destroyed, creating a harsh winter for its citizens. Putin has expressed a desire for peace, but on terms that ensure Russia's security, including control over all of Ukraine to extend radar warning capabilities against potential Western missile attacks. He distrusts NATO and the U.S., opposing any NATO presence in Ukraine. While a ceasefire might occur soon, negotiations over Ukraine's future and its role in Eurasia will likely be lengthy and contentious. Let's explore the video in more detail. If you find this content helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to stay updated with our latest videos.
We will see a weak global economy in the first 6 to 9 months of next year, by when the fiscal and monetary stimuli, which Trump and others will introduce, will start a 2-year boom in equities, in business activity, and in commodity markets. The problem is that it will be accompanied by rising inflation. And what we see as we go through 2027 and into 2028, we will see a repeat of the inflation process that we experienced in the late 1970s and early 1980s. And what does that imply? If US CPI is around 13% and global inflation around 15%, what are long-term bonds going to yield? US 10-year treasuries will be yielding over 10%. What is that going to do to a highly leveraged debt system? It's going to be the end of this particular cycle, and we go into rolling recessions or even depression. So how does the frictions or the wars being seen in Europe and the Middle East, how do they fit into the scenario? It's very possible that the Trump administration, who don't want wars, will do what they can to prevent the wars from escalating. We get into, by the end of January, Russia will have good control over Ukraine. This morning, they launched a massive attack on Kiev, focusing on the command and control bunkers, which probably in which there were also probably NATO officers. The early indications I've only just seen on RT News is they were completely demolished. They have demolished more than 2/3 of Ukraine's power distribution and generating capacity. So it's going to be a very cold winter. Putin has said that at his Q&A session yesterday that he wants peace, but peace on his terms. And I think this is going to be a big sticking point because his biggest fear is the security of Russia. And that will be the real difficult issues in negotiating with Washington. Because in a couple of years' time, America will have gained hypersonic technology or the equivalent, and therefore drawing a boundary along the Dnieper River is not going to give Russia's radar systems enough warning. He needs control over the whole of Ukraine so that he has enough warning of any impending missile attack by the West. Moreover, no matter who is in the White House, he is completely distrustful of any piece of paper that is written by NATO/Washington. He does not want any NATO troops patrolling Ukraine. So my conclusion is, yes, we get a quick ceasefire, but the negotiations over Ukraine are going to be very protracted. And it's not just going to be Ukraine itself. As Putin says, it's Ukraine's position in Euro-Asia.
In his recent interview, Simon highlights that China and Russia view Iran as a critical partner for advancing BRICS initiatives, including transport corridors and reducing reliance on the US dollar. China has significant investments in Iran and a 25-year development treaty, while Russia is finalizing a comprehensive agreement with Iran that includes defense cooperation. These alliances strengthen BRICS' potential to establish a robust financial system independent of the dollar, posing a strategic challenge to US dominance. Washington has already begun efforts to weaken BRICS by pressuring member states like Brazil, where political divisions threaten its commitment to the bloc. Speculatively, the US may attempt to exploit rivalries between Russia and China, offering concessions such as recognizing Russian control over Ukraine or non-interference in Taiwan in exchange for breaking BRICS alliances. Simon points out that the US aims to prevent BRICS from maturing into a fully functional economic and geopolitical bloc, as its success could diminish American influence and relegate the US to a weakened global position. This growing antagonism between the US and BRICS members increases the likelihood of prolonged conflicts. While short-term ceasefires or de-escalations may occur, the deep-rooted geopolitical competition and unresolved tensions could escalate into a global conflict. By 2028, this rivalry could culminate in a large-scale war, potentially marking the onset of World War III. Now let's dive into the interview.
China has huge investments in Iran and a 25-year development treaty. China gets a lot of its oil from Iran. Russia is about to sign a very large and complex treaty with Iran, which includes defense. Both countries see Iran as pivotal in developing the BRICS, not just the BRICS organization, but the whole of the transport north-south links and east-west. So Iran is very pivotal to BRICS. Now, one of Trump's objectives is to break up BRICS, and he will probably in his negotiations with Russia will say something like, and I'm guessing, we give you Ukraine. We promise that Ukraine will never join NATO, but in return, you've got to break away your alliance with China. So he goes to China Again, I'm guessing. And he says, you break away from Russia, and if you invade Taiwan, we won't stop you or try to. He has already, or it's not he, Washington has already has had some success in weakening Brazil's resolve with BRICS. The big ministries in Brazil are anti-BRICS, so that's put the President Lula on a weak footing. Moreover, so some suggest all Washington has to do is to make a telephone call and Lula is back in jail. So Washington has already started to break the BRICS organization up. And the reason is very simple, that if BRICS was allowed to mature to the extent that they had developed strong secretariats, enlarged the new development bank into a functioning lending institution, and if first they were able to settle most of their trade and investment without using the dollar, which is on the way of them so doing, and then in a few years' time to form their own BRICS currency, then that would leave America as another failed empire. So a primary objective of Washington, whoever is in the White House, is to see that BRICS fails. What does this mean? First of all, BRICS are not going to disappear tomorrow. So eventually, what it will mean is you've got two strong antagonists, and neither is going to step back. So you end in war. So my fear is that the war syndrome, no matter whether in the short term there is ceasefire or deflating the conflict, that on our reckoning, by 2028, we will be at war. That's when World War III starts.
The unfolding economic and geopolitical dynamics suggest a turbulent path ahead, marked by market corrections, inflationary pressures, and intensifying global rivalries as BRICS seeks to challenge U.S. dominance. The potential for conflict escalates, with the risk of a worldwide war looming by the late 2020s. Amid these challenges, the interplay of fiscal policies, alliances, and negotiations will shape the trajectory of global stability and economic resilience. How might the U.S. counteract BRICS' efforts to establish a financial system independent of the dollar without escalating global tensions? What strategies could nations adopt to mitigate the economic impact of rising inflation and market corrections in the coming years? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video.